Childbirth is one of the most universal human experiences. Yet for most of history, it took place not in sterile hospitals, but in homes, fields, and tents, without anesthesia, without antiseptics, without surgeons. How did ancient women survive and even thrive through this dangerous rite of passage? To understand, we must first set aside modern assumptions. Ancient childbirth was not a medical event. It was a social, spiritual, and communal one. And it was governed by a body of knowledge passed down. In ancient Egypt, women gave birth in a special hut called a mammacy, or birth house, set apart from the main home. The goddess Tauret, part hippopotamus, part lion, part crocodile, was called upon to protect mother and child. Midwives recited spells and offered amulets. The mother squatted on a pair of birth bricks, a posture that used gravity to aid delivery. These bricks were often decorated with protective symbols. In ancient Greece, women turned to Artemis, the goddess of childbirth, for protection. The laboring mother was attended by female relatives and a midwife, or Maya. The Greek physician Hippocrates described the ideal birth position, the mother sitting on a birthing stool, a chair with a crescent-shaped opening. Midwives would manually turn the baby if needed. After birth, the umbilical cord was cut with a sharp stone or knife, and the baby was washed with warm water and olive oil. In ancient Rome, childbirth was overseen by the goddesses Juno, Lucina, and Diana. The midwife, or obstetrix, was often a trained professional. The Roman physician Soranus wrote a detailed guide on delivery, recommending the mother lie on a low bed with her legs bent. He described how to cut the cord, bathe the baby, and even how to recognize a healthy newborn. Roman women also used amulets and charms, but Soranus warned against superstition, advocating for practical care. Passed down through generations of women. In this documentary, we will explore the practices of 4 great ancient civilizations: Egypt, Greece, Rome, and Mesopotamia. We will see how midwives, herbs, positions, and rituals combined to create a system that, while far from safe by modern standards, was remarkably effective for its time. Our journey begins in ancient Egypt, where some of the world's earliest medical texts survive. The Kahun Gynecological Papyrus, dating to around 1800 BCE, contains detailed instructions for diagnosing pregnancy, determining the sex of the unborn child, and treating gynecological ailments. Egyptian midwives were highly respected and often trained within families. They used honey and acacia as contraceptives, and a mixture of crocodile dung and sour milk as a pessary. While these may sound bizarre, some had mild spermicidal properties. The birthing process itself was a communal event, with women supporting the mother in a squatting position on a brick. The mother would be surrounded by female relatives and friends, chanting spells to the goddess Tauret, the hippopotamus goddess of childbirth, and Bes, the dwarf god who warded off evil spirits. These rituals provided psychological comfort and social support, which modern medicine now recognizes as crucial for reducing stress during labor. The Egyptians also used a variety of herbal remedies, such as fennel and coriander, to stimulate contract. The Egyptian approach to childbirth was holistic, blending practical midwifery with spiritual protection. This combination of empirical knowledge and ritual is a theme we will see repeated across all 4 civilizations. But Egypt was just the beginning. Next, we travel to ancient Greece, where the father of medicine, Hippocrates, began to apply a more systematic, observational approach to childbirth, moving away from pure superstition toward a natural instructions for diagnosing pregnancy, predicting the sex of the child, and treating complications. Egyptian midwives, known as SWNW or wise women, were highly respected. They used a variety of techniques: abdominal massage with oils, herbal concoctions to stimulate contractions, and even a form of the birthing chair, a brick stool that allowed the mother to squat. One common remedy was a mixture of honey and herbs applied to the abdomen to open the womb. Honey also had antibacterial. The Egyptians did not fully understand germ theory. Their medical system was a blend of practical observation, religious ritual, and magic. For example, the Ebers Papyrus contains spells to ward off demons believed to cause disease. A patient might receive both a herbal remedy and an incantation to the goddess Sekhmet. This dual approach, treating the body and the spirit, was central to Egyptian healing. Physicians were often priests, trained in temple schools where they studied One of the most remarkable Egyptian medical texts is the Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating to around 1600 BCE. Unlike the Ebers Papyrus, it is a surgical treatise, describing 48 cases of injuries, fractures, and wounds. It is astonishingly rational. It examines the pulse, the brain, the meninges, and the spinal cord. It even notes that damage to one side of the brain affects the opposite side of the body, a discovery often credited to much later physicians. The papyrus uses a triage system. An ailment I will treat. An ailment. The legacy of Egyptian medicine is profound. Greek physicians like Hippocrates and later Galen studied in Egypt and borrowed heavily from Egyptian knowledge. The Ebers Papyrus contains remedies that were still in use in Europe centuries later. Egyptian surgical instruments, forceps, scalpels, probes, were remarkably similar to those used in the Roman era. And the holistic view of health, balancing body, mind, and spirit, resonates with modern integrative medicine. The ancient Egyptians did not just treat symptoms. They sought to understand the Ebers Papyrus, another medical text, lists over 700 remedies, including prescriptions for easing labor. For example, a drink made from fresh dates and beer was believed to speed delivery. Egyptian women also used amulets and invoked the goddess Taweret, the hippopotamus goddess of childbirth, for protection. Religion and medicine were deeply intertwined. Mortality rates are difficult to estimate, but evidence from mummies and skeletal remains suggests that while childbirth was dangerous, many women survived multiple deliveries. The goddess Taweret was often depicted as a pregnant hippopotamus, standing on her hind legs, sometimes holding a protective symbol. She was a common figure in household shrines. Many women survived multiple deliveries. The community support system was crucial. Egyptian birth practices were not just superstition, they were a practical system refined over centuries. The use of ergot, a fungus that contracts the uterus, may have been known, though historians debate this. What is clear is that Egyptian midwives were skilled. They could turn a breech baby, manage hemorrhage with pressure, and cut the umbilical cord with a sterilized by fire knife. Egyptian knowledge was not lost. Egyptian knowledge was not lost. It was passed down through generations, influencing later Greek and Roman medicine. The legacy of these ancient midwives lived. Greek physicians like Hippocrates and Soranus later studied Egyptian methods, adapting them to their own cultures. In ancient Greece, childbirth was the exclusive domain of women. Men, even doctors, were rarely present. The Greek word for midwife, Maya, means wise woman, and these women were trusted with the lives of mothers and infants. Greek women typically gave birth in a squatting or kneeling position. This was not accidental. It used gravity to aid delivery and widen the pelvic outlet. Modern obstetrics has rediscovered the benefits of upright birth positions, but for centuries, Western medicine abandoned them in favor of the lithotomy position, where the woman lies. The Romans, in turn, adopted Greek medical knowledge. The Roman physician Soranus of Ephesus wrote a comprehensive textbook on gynecology and obstetrics in the 2nd century AD. His work described how to cut the umbilical cord, deliver the placenta, and care for the newborn. Soranus also recommended a birthing chair, a special seat with a crescent-shaped opening that supported the mother during labor. Roman midwives were highly respected and could become quite wealthy. They were trained through apprenticeships and sometimes even attended medical lectures. The Roman state, however, did not regulate midwifery. Any woman could call herself a midwife, and the quality of care varied widely. Despite this, many Roman midwives were skilled practitioners who used tools like the speculum and performed manual version to turn a breech. The Greek physician Soranus of Ephesus, writing in the 1st century CE, described the ideal birthing room: warm, quiet, and dimly lit. He recommended a birthing chair with a crescent-shaped opening to support the mother. Herbal remedies were widely used. Pennyroyal, a type of mint, was used to induce contractions, though it could be toxic in high doses. Other herbs like dill and anise were used to ease. Greek women often gave birth in a squatting or kneeling position, which uses gravity to assist delivery. Midwives would support the mother from behind or in front, applying pressure to the abdomen. After birth, the baby was placed on the ground to symbolize its connection to the earth. The father would then lift the child, formally accepting it into the family. This ritual was called amphidromia, also used amulets and incantations. The knot of Heracles was a magical knot tied around the woman's waist to protect her from harm. After birth, it was untied to release the baby. Maternal mortality in ancient Greece is estimated at around 1–2% per birth, according to studies of skeletal remains. That means a woman with 5 children had a 5–10% lifetime risk, high by modern standards but not a death sentence. Greek midwives were trained through apprenticeship. by assisting experienced practitioners, and their knowledge was passed down orally. There were no formal schools or written exams. A successful midwife was respected in her community. She knew herbal remedies to ease pain, speed labor, or stop bleeding. For example, pennyroyal was used to induce contractions, though it could be toxic in large doses. They also used honey as an antiseptic and olive oil for massage. The Greeks believed that the womb could move around the body, a condition called hysterical wandering. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, wrote about childbirth in his medical texts. He described the stages of labor and recommended that the midwife sit in front of the woman, not behind her. He also advised that the woman should be in a warm, dark room to reduce fear. However, Hippocrates had some odd ideas too. He thought that the baby kicked its way out of the womb and that the mother's sneeze could help expel the placenta. Despite these misconceptions, his writings formed the basis of Western medicine. In ancient Rome, childbirth practices were similar to Greece, but with a few differences. Roman midwives were often Greek slaves or freedwomen who brought their knowledge with them. The Romans were more practical. They used a birthing chair called the sella obstetricia, a simple chair with a crescent-shaped hole in the seat. The woman sat on it, and the midwife sat in front to catch the baby. Roman law also regulated midwifery. The Lex Cornelia de Medicis et Nutricibus required midwives to be at least 25 years old, to recognize complications like hemorrhage and retained placenta, and had manual techniques to address them. The Greek approach was holistic. The mother's emotional state was considered important. Midwives encouraged a calm environment with soothing words. In ancient Rome, childbirth was both a private family event and a matter of public interest. Roman law regulated midwifery, and midwives' obstetrics could be licensed. They were often Greek slaves or freedwomen trained in the Hellenistic tradition. Roman women also had access to a range of medical texts. The works of Soranus of Ephesus, a Greek physician practicing in Rome around the 2nd century AD, became the standard for midwifery for centuries. His book, Gynecology, described pregnancy, delivery, and newborn care. Soranus emphasized cleanliness, proper positioning of the mother, and the use of the birthing chair. He also described how to cut the umbilical cord, deliver the placenta, and care for the newborn. His teachings were so influential that they were copied and used used the birthing chair, but they added a new element: the genital unguent, a lubricant made from olive oil and myrrh to ease the baby's passage. Roman medical writer Celsus, in his work De Medicina, described surgical interventions for difficult births, including the use of hooks to extract a dead fetus, a procedure that was. Roman women also relied on magical amulets, such as those depicting the goddess Juno Lucina, protector of childbirth. The home was purified with sulfur and incense before the birth. After delivery, the baby was placed on the ground for the father to acknowledge and lift, a legal act of acceptance. If the father did not lift the child, it could be exposed, a harsh reality of Roman society. Roman midwives were skilled in manual maneuvers, such as version to change the baby's position. They also used herbal fumigations to relax the mother. In Mesopotamia, childbirth was surrounded by elaborate rituals. The goddess. In Mesopotamia, childbirth was surrounded by elaborate rituals. The goddess Ishtar was invoked for protection. Incantations were recited, and amulets were placed around the mother to ward off evil spirits. Ishtar was invoked, and incantations were recited to drive away demons like Lamashtu, who was believed to harm mothers and infants. Mesopotamian women gave birth on a birthing brick, a special clay brick that was both a physical support and a symbolic object. The brick was often inscribed with prayer. Herbal remedies included the use of silphium, a plant now extinct, which was used as a contraceptive and to induce other plants like juniper and myrrh were common. Midwives in Mesopotamia were known as shabsutu, and they had a high status. They could own property and were often called upon as expert witnesses in legal cases involving pregnancy or birth. Mortality rates in Mesopotamia were likely similar to those in Greece, but written records are scarce. The Code of Hammurabi includes laws about the payment of midwives and penalties for causing harm. Across all these cultures, one theme emerges: childbirth was a female-centered event. Men were excluded. This tradition of female-only birth spaces would continue for millennia, shaping the experience of childbirth across the ancient world. and women relied on each other. This created a powerful bond and a transmission of knowledge that spanned generations. The tools were simple: birthing chairs, oils, herbs, amulets, and skilled hands. But the system was sophisticated, combining practical knowledge with spiritual support. Modern obstetrics has much to learn from ancient practices. The use of upright positions, the importance of a calm environment, and the role of continuous support during labor are all validated by modern research. Ancient women understood that birth was not just a physical event, but a profound emotional and spiritual transition. They created rituals to honor the mother, to welcome the child, and to protect the family. This wisdom was passed down orally, through apprenticeship, and through the lived experience of countless births. It was a science of observation, intuition, and care. Our ancestors were not helpless. They were active participants in a system they understood and trusted. They faced real dangers, but they faced them with courage, and as we reflect on this journey, we gain a deeper appreciation for the resilience of our ancestors and the progress of modern medicine. But we also recognize that some ancient wisdom remains valuable today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories from history. This concludes our documentary on ancient medicine. We hope you learned something new about the roots of healing.